Imagine waking up to the news that 80,000 Russian soldiers, one of the largest military groupings in modern European history, are now completely surrounded, cut off from reinforcements, supplies, and even orders from Moscow. The world is watching, the stakes are enormous, and the next few days could reshape not just the war in Ukraine, but the entire balance of power in Europe. What happens now? Is this the beginning of the end for Russia's campaign, or the start of something even more unpredictable? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, we'll break down the facts, the possibilities, and the hidden consequences that mainstream headlines aren't telling you. To understand what happens next, we need to rewind and see how this massive encirclement unfolded. This wasn't a random event or a lucky break for Ukraine. It was the result of months of planning, intelligence gathering, and a series of bold, coordinated moves that caught Russian commanders completely off guard. It started with Ukraine's 47th Mechanized Brigade making a sudden push from the town of Robotyne, while at the same time, the elite 82nd Air Assault Brigade advanced from Verbov. These weren't isolated attacks. They were part of a larger, synchronized operation designed to stretch Russian defenses thin and force them to commit their reserves in the wrong place. Ukrainian intelligence, working closely with NATO advisors, had identified a critical weakness. Russia's 58th Combined Arms Army had overextended itself, trying to hold the town of Tokmak, leaving its southern flank dangerously exposed. As Ukrainian forces pressed forward, Russian commanders made a fateful decision. Believing that the main Ukrainian thrust was aimed at Tokmak, they committed their reserves to defend it. But this was exactly what Ukraine wanted. With Russian reinforcements tied up, Ukrainian units bypassed Tokmak entirely, linking up south of the Melitopol highway and closing the trap. Within 48 hours, a pocket had formed, one that now held not just the 58th Army, but also the 49th Combined Arms Army, elements of the 7th VDV Airborne Division, Black Sea Marines, and thousands of support personnel. In total, 80,000 Russian troops were now encircled in a kill zone spanning 70 square kilometers. Satellite imagery confirmed what was happening on the ground. Russian supply lines had been severed for 3 consecutive days. No reinforcements, no air support, no way out. This wasn't a tactical withdrawal or a regrouping maneuver. It was a disaster in the making, and the world was about to see how both sides would respond. But the military situation is only half the story. What makes this encirclement truly historic is what happened next, a total breakdown in Russian command and control. As the pocket closed, desperate Russian commanders inside the encirclement radioed for help. Their messages were clear. We have no resupply corridor. Repeat, no corridor. The response from Moscow was even clearer. Silence, hesitation, and ultimately refusal. According to multiple intelligence intercepts, the Kremlin issued 3 separate orders demanding immediate relief operations. The first came from General Valery Gerasimov, Russia's chief of the general staff, who ordered 25,000 reserve troops from Crimea to break the encirclement. The Western Military District commander delayed, citing operational assessment requirements military speak for we're not doing it. The second order, from Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, called for close air support and helicopter extraction teams. The Russian Air Force commander responded that such missions were not tactically viable given Ukrainian air defenses. The third and final order, reportedly from Putin himself, demanded an immediate armored breakthrough using all available forces. The Southern Military District commander's response is now infamous. Will not commit additional forces to unrecoverable position. 3 orders, 3 refusals, 0 consequences. For the first time since World War II, Russian generals openly ignored direct orders from the Kremlin. This wasn't just a military defeat, it was a political earthquake. If Putin can't enforce discipline in the middle of an existential war, what does that say about his grip on power? The euphemisms operational assessment requirements, not tactically viable, unrecoverable position were just fig leaves for a deeper truth. Russia's military leadership had decided to prioritize self-preservation over loyalty to the regime. So what is life like for the 80,000 Russian soldiers now trapped inside the encirclement? The answer is grim. Cut off from resupply, these troops face a rapidly deteriorating situation. Food, fuel, and ammunition are running out. Medical supplies are scarce. Morale is plummeting as soldiers realize that help is not coming. Ukrainian forces have fortified the perimeter with an estimated 35,000 to 40,000 troops backed by heavy artillery and advanced air defense systems. Any attempt to break out would require overwhelming force, at least a 3-to-1 attacker advantage, according to modern military doctrine. Russia simply doesn't have the numbers. Pentagon wargaming models put the probability of a successful breakout at less than 15%. The alternative is even worse. A slow, grinding collapse as units fragment, supplies dwindle, and casualties mount. For the soldiers inside the pocket, the choices are stark. They can try to fight their way out and risk annihilation, attempt to surrender en masse and face the uncertainty of captivity, or simply wait and hope for a miracle that isn't coming. The psychological toll is immense. Many of these troops have been fighting for months, some for years, and now find themselves abandoned by their own commanders. The sense of betrayal is palpable, and reports of desertion, infighting, and even mutiny are beginning to surface. Why does this encirclement matter so much? The answer goes far beyond the immediate fate of the 80,000 trapped soldiers. This pocket sits astride the M14 highway and the Southern Railway, the only ground routes connecting Crimea to mainland Russia. Everything Russia has achieved in 2 years of war depends on holding this territory. If the encircled army collapses, Crimea becomes an island again, just as it was before 2014. The economic stakes are staggering. These routes carry billions of dollars in military supplies and civilian commerce every month. Lose them, and Russia's entire position in southern Ukraine becomes untenable. There's more. Just 25 kilometers from the pocket sits the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, Europe's largest. If Russian forces there become isolated, the risks to nuclear safety and regional stability skyrocket. The Black Sea Fleet's logistics network is also at risk. Lose this army, and Ukrainian artillery could threaten the last remaining Russian ports in Berdyansk and Mariupol. For Putin, the political stakes are existential. The land bridge to Crimea was his signature achievement, the proof he offered to the Russian public that the war was worth fighting. Losing it would erase 2 years of gains and shatter the myth of Russian military invincibility. It would also embolden Ukraine and its Western allies, potentially opening the door to further advances and even negotiations on Kyiv's terms. So, what happens now? There are 3 main scenarios, each with its own risks and consequences. Scenario 1, mass surrender. As supplies run out, the encircled troops could begin surrendering in large numbers. This would be the largest Russian military surrender since World War II, a political catastrophe for Putin and a propaganda victory for Ukraine. Scenario 2, slow collapse. The pocket could fragment as units attempt piecemeal breakouts, suffering heavy casualties but avoiding the spectacle of mass surrender. This would still be a devastating blow to Russian morale and military capability. Scenario 3, desperate gamble. Putin could overrule his generals and order a full-scale breakout attempt, committing whatever reserves remain. This would likely fail, resulting in catastrophic losses and further weakening Russia's position. No matter which scenario unfolds, the consequences will be felt far beyond the battlefield. The collapse of Russian command authority, the loss of strategic territory, and the psychological impact on both sides will shape the next phase of the war and possibly the future of the Russian regime itself. The world is watching. The next few days will reveal not just the fate of 80,000 soldiers, but the future of a war that has already changed Europe forever. Stay tuned, stay informed, and let us know in the comments, what do you think happens next?